Hello Badger Army, hope you're all well guys. So today I thought we would talk a little bit about Amnesia, The Dark Descent, because we've been recently playing it on the channel, so I thought we would give it a bit of a review. Now my thoughts on the game are very interesting. Now there's a lot of things going on in that game that people might not realise. Now there's some Lovecraftian influences definitely, and there's some definite nods to some old school horror, and I really like the architecture of the buildings and the interesting little vibes you get. The music was so scary in it. I really love that sort of slow burning music that was quite sort of really low key level, and then it was sometimes really high, and then it was like really massive dramatic scores, and of course then you had the music where the monster came in. You have a different type of music when you're low on health. There's some really interesting things going on with the music and the tone that it gives, and sometimes the lack of the music actually really got me as well. So that means like, it's like, what's going on? It's too quiet. What is this all about? You know, so there's a really good thing to do with the music there, and I really love that. And now I'm going to go on to the graphics in the game. Now, obviously, playing Machine for Pigs now, you would think that the graphics are much better in that, yes, but I think for some reason the grittiness of the first one, the grittiness of the graphics in Dark Descent actually make it feel a bit more realer, and I think with the fact that Machine for Pigs is a bit smoother, it makes me think it's a bit like not as scary, you know, it's like a bit too clean, even in the bits where it's way too scary for me in some places. It's just a bit too clean, so it makes me think, oh, you know, it's not too bad. Whereas in, you know, Dark Descent, it's gritty, it's scary. Some of the stuff is like there's blood oozing off the walls and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a bit more to Dark Descent, I think, graphically wise, than people might realise. And I think Dark Descent is actually the most popular in the series, and I can understand why. So we've talked about the music, we've talked about the graphics, and now I'd like to talk about Daniel as a protagonist in the game, and of course some of the stuff that he gets up to. I think it's really interesting that he's the main focal point and he's lost his memory, and I think it's really interesting that you get drip fed bits and pieces of information about his sort of life and what happened before he got to the castle, and then while he was in the castle as well. And I think that really adds to the storyline. I think it's an inventive way to find out stuff about the game, and all the different notes and things like that. I know that when I'm going to play it again, I will take more time reading the notes and learning the lore of the game, because I think there's a lot in there that we may have skipped over, which is a shame, but needs must, and I needed to get cracking on. I was really excited to complete the game, but we will do another playthrough at some time with a bit more of a slower pace, and we'll look through the notes and we'll have a good read of all the different laws in the game. So I think he's a very interesting character, and I think he was really desperate to get out by the end, and he was forced to be a bad person. Now that is interesting, that you're not actually playing a squeaky clean guy in the end once you realise what happens. Obviously there's no spoilers here guys, but it's interesting that when you first start off, you're a clean cut hero, and then by the end of it you find out lots of information about him that makes you think twice about Daniel as a main protagonist. And you think, yeah, he's a bit edgy, isn't he? He's done some stuff that's actually not that great in order to survive, so he's really interesting. And then I'd like to talk about the enemies in the game. Now, my goodness me, there's one particular enemy that really stumped me, and that was when you're in this hallway, right? And there's some boxes and all sorts of things like that, and there's a load of water there, and you have to try and run and peg it so fast to avoid the monster. And I'll tell you what, there was quite a few times when people epic failed me and roasty toasted me, because I was like really close to doing it, but then at the very last second I got there just in time to be nommed by the monster to bits, and it wasn't fun. So it did take quite a few times with that one to try and defeat that monster, and I think that is my favourite monster in the game. He was very scary, and I thought that it was really cool that he, you know, sort of jumped at you and stuff like that. And some of the other monsters as well, there's one that has like a disfigured face that almost looked like the fangs from Blade 2, if you know what I mean, and they were pretty scary as well. He was like stalking you as well, really slowly, that one. So this is the thing, there was a really slow monster, which is the first one you come into contact with. The monster that's in the water is really fast, and there's another one that's really fast that does a one-hit kill. Now that one-hit kill monster, no. It was like I was running away like anyone's business, but I thought it was great. You know, so I think they got the tone of the bosses and the monsters and the interesting things going on really well. So I really enjoyed the monsters, and the scare factor was great. It really had my heart pounding. I loved it. So yeah, I think the monsters were fantastic. And of course, now onto some of the puzzles that were in the game. Now, the puzzles for me were really hard, and I'm finding them really hard. And I think if I replayed them, I'd still forget what to do, and I think I'd still find it really super hard what to do in the game. But yeah, so it's one of those games where you can revisit. So, apparently there's multiple solutions for the different things you can do, which I like, but apparently it's really tough. Some of the puzzles I really didn't like, but that's why you guys, the Badger Army, helped me with some of it. I did have to use a teeny bit of a walkthrough, but I think it was mainly about half and half. So half of the game I didn't use a walkthrough for, and half of the game I did, which, you know, so it wasn't too bad. There was a few really tricky bits that were really obvious, but they didn't jump out at me. Really annoying. But we got there eventually, and I was really proud when I completed the game, because it's probably one of the hardest games I've played for a long time, puzzle-wise. I don't really like puzzle games, but the fact of the graphics being so awesome, the gameplay being really spot on, really good stuff, and of course the enemies were really freaky. Now, I'd like to talk to you a little bit now about the gameplay, because I really liked it, but it was tough along with the puzzles. Now, obviously you could tell it was a bit of an older game because the gameplay isn't quite spot on like Machine for Pigs. I think that's probably one thing that Machine for Pigs has over it, is that the gameplay is a little bit better, but it doesn't mean it's a better game. It's a bit more smoother, I think, than Machine for Pigs, but like I said, it adds to the charm that it's a bit rougher and a bit harder to figure out what to do. But yeah, so the gameplay and it's really good. I think there were some really good bits in there, some really good spots that were really scary, like genuinely made me jump, genuinely really freaked me out. And yeah, so the gameplay was spot on. I didn't quite understand how to do some of the bits and pieces, like some of the things it just expected you to know, and other bits it over-explained, which was unusual. But yeah, I really liked that. So the gameplay was spot on, and it added to the scare factor, I think, as well. A lot of the loading screens were annoying, but they did use like the sort of original Resident Evil mechanic where, you know, the door was opening and it came up with a picture and told you a bit of the story. So that was interesting, yeah. So there's a lot of stuff involved in the game I really loved. I'll tell you, loads of stuff I really liked. Yes, indeed. So I really liked the game, and I thought there was some interesting bits in there, and like I was saying before, there's loads of notes and stuff we missed, so I'm going to go over it again. But overall, I'd definitely give Amnesia, The Dark Descent, a generously awesome 9 out of 10, because I thought it gave good scares, good storyline. Puzzles were too hard in some places, so that's why I knocked it down from a 10. And I thought the graphics were nice and grainy and gory and interesting, so there's a lot of cool stuff there. That is why I'd say 9 out of 10. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you very much for joining me for this review, Badger Army, and let me know if you'd like to see more in the coming weeks when we complete more horror games. Bye for now, guys. See you soon. Bye.